students, that one driver has their back to those 71 students and is trying to safely navigate that bus down the road. Now, one of the things we see current in today's media is, don't text and drive, don't text and drive. Driver distraction was a cause of an incident or an accident. Having 71 students behind you is a driver distraction. Trying to ensure, to enforce that all students, all 71 of those students are buckled up, it's almost impossible. So the enforcement, how do we enforce it? Expense. The expense per bus is $6,000, roughly. My district, our latest bus was approximately $100,000. You add another $6,000, we have 123 buses in our fleet. To go back and retrofit those buses, 6,000 times 123, that number gets just astronomical. And where does the money come from? I don't know about nationwide, but in Texas, school funding is short and almost non-existent, it seems like. But it is very, we haven't, specifically in transportation, we haven't had an increase in funding since 1978. 1 year after this standard of compartmentalization was implemented. So since that time, our funding has not increased. When I started almost 20 years ago here, school buses cost $46,000. In less than 20 years, they've over doubled in price. So I'm just giving you the numbers so you understand that the expense and funding of that, it will be just astronomical. And bus driver responses. When I was doing literature review, I could not find any perspective, or shouldn't say any, I could find very little perspective from a school bus driver. Does a school bus driver feel that their students are in danger? Do school buses think that, or school bus drivers think that seat belts are necessary on school bus? And school buses, excuse me, take a little drink. This image here reflects the only bus driver weigh-in that I could find. This image here is from a September incident down in Houston, where this school bus went off an overpass, trying to avoid a collision on top, went over the guardrail and landed upside down and rolled. I believe there were 3 students on board, and there was at least 1 fatality in this. So, because it happened so recently when I was doing my research, I found that the Houston Bus Driver Union calls for the addition of seatbelts on school buses. They feel, because of the way that this bus tumbled off the overpass, that we could have saved that 1 student's life had they been buckled in. Now, compartmentalization is designed only for frontal impacts. So it leaves out rollovers and it leaves out side impacts. Think about sitting in a school bus and your window's on your right, you have a nice steel wall and half of it's steel, half of it's glass. You get hit from the side, your head goes sideways, it hits the glass or the metal. In compartmentalization, it lacks seat belts. In the event, in this case, of a rollover, students tumble around like a pair of socks in a dryer until it lands. So in a rollover, or in this case, it's kind of an aerial rollover. The gap in the research I found, as I've kind of alluded to already, is that there's data lacking from the perspective of bus drivers. Do bus drivers feel that seat belts are necessary? Are they going to save lives? Think about it. They're the ones on the front lines. They're the ones who do the day-to-day driving with our students, with our children. And from their perspective, from the experts' perspective, from the ones doing the actual job, do they think that seat belts are necessary? Methodology. On this particular one, I'm going to do a little bit of reading just because it's easier than presenting all this on the slides. But the school district in which I work has approximately a fleet of 123 school buses. The driver population consists of 37 regular education drivers, 29 special education drivers, and 90 athletic drivers. And the 90 athletic drivers, they drive their students seasonally. They come here and get a bus when it's soccer season, when it's football season, when it's baseball season. So those 90 aren't driving the 179 days of school. They drive intermittently through that. The student enrollment for the district is approximately 22,000 students, with only 4,700 of those students being transported on district school buses. The data, and that's because of eligibility and the way we're funded by the state. If we're not, the state funds us within anybody outside of a 2-mile radius from their campus is eligible for transportation, and anybody inside the 2-mile radius is not eligible for transportation. So that's why our numbers are, and we're a tight district, 44 square miles, suburban. We're right in smack dab in the middle of Dallas and Fort Worth, just a bunch of subdivisions and apartment complexes. The data collection process consisted of 33 surveys completed by a sample group of drivers from the 3 different categories of regular education, special needs drivers, and coach athletic drivers. The regular education drivers are responsible for the safety of up to 71 students, 71 passengers at one time, as I explained earlier. Special needs transport approximately 12 to 20 students, and on special needs buses, it's funded through grants, and that grant funding requires that there be a monitor or a bus aide on there, and so there's actually 2 adults for that small number of children. But those children also have, special needs that require extra assistance. And the athletic drivers are, as I said, they transport their teams to athletic events. The surveys were distributed to the sample group along with the consent form. The surveys, as well as the consent forms, were created in a Word document and handed, and it looks just like this, and handed to the sample group participants. A timeline was given of 3 days for their return. A check sheet with the list of participants' names was created to document the return of surveys. 45 were distributed and 33 of them were returned. I analyzed the data and recorded the results on a Word document in an Excel spreadsheet. The results were graphed and charted for analysis. The participants were given the opportunity to complete the survey at their leisure. I didn't want it to be something where they came into my office, as their supervisor and said, "Here, I want you to fill this out," and then sit there and watch them. So I gave them 3 days. I handed them the surveys, or I didn't even hand it to them personally. I sent it either inter-school mail, or our drivers have boxes, and I put it in their boxes. And first I sent a letter and said, "Hey, would you be interested in doing this?" Actually, it was attached to the survey. If they were interested in doing it, I'd appreciate it. Of those that I distributed, only 33 of them were returned. I wanted it to be loose. I gave it to them on a Wednesday, said, "Hey, can I have it back by Friday?" And that's where I drew my data from. The results. What did I find out? The survey results. The way it was broken down is the driver experience, I think, had something to do with my final result. The experience of the driver was a mixture that ranged from 0 to 5 years to 15 or more years. 40%, and that's right here, 40% of the drivers are 0 to 5 years. That could play a part in school buses, or seatbelts in school buses, in that the 0 to 5 years, they've been more recently trained. It's more fresh in their minds. However, that's a positive. Maybe a plus, and maybe a delta or a negative would be that they're the most inexperienced drivers that we have. the least experienced to, be giving their opinion about seatbelts. Maybe they haven't been here long enough to see how it works. To not see how it works, but the observation of children and behaviors and accidents and things like that. 30% had 6 to 10 years, 21% with 10 to 15 years of driving experience, and only 6% of the driver surveys possess more than 15 years of experience. So my most experienced drivers are my smallest group. Survey results: division of more in danger, not in danger bus driver percentages by years of experience. We determined of the 0 to 5 drivers, 73% felt that their students were not in more danger without the availability of seatbelts in the buses they drive, while 27% felt that the students were in more danger. Among the 6 to 10 year drivers, 33% felt that their students were not in danger without seatbelts, and 67% felt that the students were in more danger. So it's increasing, the percentage of danger was increasing by years of experience. 15 years were unanimous in that students are in more danger without seatbelts. 10 to 15 years were kind of tied, 6 to 10 was a little higher. Percentages of overall drivers who feel their students are in danger, not in danger without seatbelts. So kind of the bottom line, the bottom figure is that 55% of the bus drivers here in my district that I surveyed feel that students are not in danger without the availability of seatbelts. 45% of them said yes, we think they are in danger without the availability of seatbelts. Kind of a comparison with the national averages is that my district, Hershey-Lewis-Bedford, represented by that mustard colored, and I didn't choose that color when I put it on this PowerPoint. That's the color it went to, and I couldn't fix it. But that pretty little color there is my district. And I was telling you earlier that 80% of the nation's school buses don't have seat belts, whereas only 67% of my district's